Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me tonight. We're going to be painting some water. I'm going to show you how different ways to paint water. It can be one of the trickiest subjects to cover for people. It's a little daunting, and there's a lot that goes into it. So I'm going to try to break it down for you to make it a little bit more simple. And yeah, that'll be what we're going to do tonight. I've got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's been in chat, so if you've got questions, you can ask those while we're painting. Let's get started. All right, so we're going to do it a little bit differently tonight. If you're familiar with my channel, we do live tutorials, paint things from start to finish all the way through usually. Tonight we're going to go a little bit deeper into technique. So we're just going to do some very small, like little samples of different kinds of techniques that you might use for painting water. And I'm going to show you a lot of different examples and how you can apply the techniques that we're going to be learning to an actual painting. All of these paintings that I'll be showing you from the canvases here are available on either on YouTube or on my website. So a few of them, like this one, are Patreon-based ones, but most of them are free. And we've done hundreds of paintings of water over the years. So we're going to kind of just break down and try to like really narrow it down the facts about water and painting them and kind of what I know over the last, really only been painting water myself for about, I don't know, 5 years or so. No, 10 years, probably closer to 10. So it's fairly new to me too. So I'm still learning. I feel like I'm still learning a lot of things about painting as I teach it, which is a good thing. You should never stop learning as an artist, obviously. There's always something new to learn. But these are kind of just some of the things that I've observed as I've been painting, some of the challenges that I've had and things like that. So what we're going to cover tonight is calm water, moving water, so kind of more violent water, seas, rough seas and rivers, things like that. Reflections in water, so that'll kind of go along with calm water somewhat, because usually you'll see reflections like in this one or this one where there's a little bit less violent waves, a little bit calmer, and you're going to see reflections, and kind of how to decide where to put your reflections and things like that. And then we're going to do falling water, so things like the waterfalls and things like that. So that'll be kind of the basics that we'll be covering tonight in our little techniques. First thing, I just want to kind of talk about what I observe from the many years of painting here and different paintings. We're going to kind of go over some examples and things. And also, hey, welcome back. Thank you guys so much. We missed you so much. We were gone for a couple weeks there. I was not feeling well. And thank you for all the sweet messages that I got. You guys made me feel very loved. It was really sweet. So we're very glad to be back. And this different format, let me know in the comments if you like it or not. It's going to be different. I know normally we do full tutorials, but I think this might be a way to kind of gather some of these many tutorials that we've done and kind of focus in on one subject like this, like water, because we've done many different paintings, but they each had their own little individual piece of the pie. So I'm trying to kind of like consolidate it all into one kind of more cohesive water, water techniques kind of thing tonight. So hopefully I'm not going to ramble too much. We're going to try to stay on target here.
Oh, I need to have that voice.
Stay on target. Yeah.
Use the force, Angela.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is color, because one of the things about water is that it is reflective. It's like a mirror. It's kind of a moving mirror if you think about it that way. It's helpful for me. And that moving mirror can change angles depending on where the light is. So the two most important things I've found with water are figuring out where your light source is coming from, because that will inform your color a lot. What is going on in your sky? So sky and the angle of the light coming from the sky are two of the most important things And also probably the surroundings around the water too. Those all come into play depending on how rough or calm the water is. Because if it's calm, you're going to have more of that mirror-like effect from the water. If it's rough, you're going to have that mirror moving. So you're going to see some of the sky and some of the surroundings, but depending on how it's moving, you're going to see little pieces of it. So with a rougher water, something like this, where it's moving, you're going to see parts of the sky, but also parts of this and parts of just the underneath of the water, that kind of thing. So color is really important, and it's really interesting to me how the sky plays in to your paintings. And I want to pull in some of the kind of classic artwork and just show you what people like Monet did here in his. He's got some sky here and some trees reflecting in the water here. But this one is all pink, but you can still see that it's a seascape, right? It doesn't take that much for your brain to connect the dots. And that's what's so interesting about painting water to me, is really you don't have to communicate that much. Your brain is already hardwired to recognize water. And I think as artists, we get trapped into like having to paint every little detail, but you can see this painting is very, very, very simplistic and still very effective. You definitely can tell that's water, even though it's very abstracted. And part of the reason for that is that the sky and the water, any of the sky colors are in the water, cloud color in the water. Those things train your brain. Your brain's already trained to know that the sky and the water are going to be the same color. Here's another one. Sky and water, same color. Sky and water, same colors. I can keep going on and on. This one's really nice. It's got some reflections. Your sky is a little bit more out of the area there, so you've got a little bit more blue in this one. But you're getting the idea, right? So sky and color are going to, the sky is going to inform the color of your water most of the time. You're going to have at least a little bit of your sky color in your water. Even if it's calm, it's going to be affecting the colors that you're seeing. Here again. So that's something that I keep in mind, especially if I am changing the background or making it more colorful. Sometimes I will take a photograph and make a sky a little bit more vivid. And whenever I do that, I make sure that I put more color in my water, just so that it compensates for that, because I know that the color in the water, in the sky and the color of the water should match, or at least be closely related in some way. Here's another one that shows a really good example of the sky and the water being the same color. Okay, so you get the idea of that. All right, let's move on. The other thing is the shape of the water. So I have found the easiest trick for making a solid color especially look like water is when you go into an area where they're changing color. These lines should be most of the time horizontal-ish, especially if it's sort of semi-calm water. These lines water will flatten out. Your horizon line should always be completely straight, especially if you can see it against the sky, right? And anywhere where the water is sort of calm, it's going to flatten out. So you're going to have these horizontal lines that form in it. Easiest trick to making your painting look like water is to make these kind of horizontal-ish lines. And then you'll also get these little, like almost like cat's eye shapes that will form in the water. As the little waves start to flatten back out, you'll have these little raised areas and these little cat's eye areas where there's a little bit of darker area and then the lighter area on top, okay? So shape has a lot to do with it. Also, perspective has a lot to do with it. So you're going to want to make sure that your waves that are closer to you, closer to the shoreline, are a little bit larger, a little bit more depth to them, and a little bit longer. As they go in here, these waves are not going to look like these waves because they're so far away. We can't see any of this detail, right? So they have to be very small, very short, and very kind of like minimalized as far as like not a lot of lights and darks back here. It should be pretty, very, very simple on your horizon line. A lot of times you're not going to see any details at all, very minimal details, and down here's where you want all the action to go, all of this area in front where we're going to be able to see details. All of the stuff that is farther away, you don't have to put any details back here. There's just a bare little bit of color, but that's what gives it the depth and the feeling of perspective. It's that minimizing the colors, minimizing the saturation, and minimizing the details, and making sure that things are getting smaller as they go down into the depths, and then more detailed here in the foreground. Okay, so let's go ahead and put some of this to practice. I don't want to talk your ear off there too much at first, and I'll pull out some of those examples if I come across something that I want to, reinforce. But I think you get the idea. Those are kind of just the main things. It's like the colors be in the sky, really informing a lot of it. The shapes staying kind of more horizontal, like leveling. Think of leveling out. If there's waves, they are going to level out. As soon as they hit, they're going to come up. They're not going to stay up. They're going to level out, and there's going to be some curves and things. You're not going to want to see hard angles, very rarely, unless that wave is coming up to a point. Sometimes, like if you've got a real violent wave, you'll see like a point, a sharper point. But most of the time, there's just going to be a lot of flowing and a lot of like leveling out. So you may have a point, but the edges of it should kind of taper out and go horizontal on you. That makes sense? All right, let's get going. Let's paint here. So let's start out with, let me get a pen or something to mark with. All the pens in the world, and I don't know which one to pick. All right, let's grab just one of these here. So let's say we're going to do calm water. All right, so we're going to start there. So when I'm thinking about calm water, I know a couple of things. I know that we're going to see more reflections because it's going to be more like mirror-like, right? So we'll just pick whatever color we want. Let's go ahead and just maybe do like a pink, because I think that'll be fun for our sky. So I'll get a little bit of magenta here. And I'm going to do a very simple sky. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring this down into where I would want my water to be. Maybe at the horizon line. What you'll often see is like a little bit of a lightening of the water. So this paper is a little bit tricky to do this because it's going to suck in all of the moisture out of my brush, but you'll get the idea. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a lightening here at the horizon line, and if I had a sunset, say this was a sunset, I would make sure that I had the same color that is in my sun in my water. In this case, I think we're not going to do that. We're going to say maybe it's like a sunset, but the sun is behind us. So maybe it's not, what would that be? East Coast sunset on the water. So we're not going to have reflections in the water here on this one. We're just going to show you kind of what it would look like. So I will have some of the blue, but I'm going to make sure that I use whatever color is in my water in my ocean. And it can be dark on that horizon line. It doesn't have to be lighter on the horizon line. If the light is coming from behind us, then your water is going to be a little bit darker. If the light is right above the water or on the horizon, then the horizon line is going to be lighter. So we'll say the light is coming from behind us, and we're just going to do like this. And literally just go side to side, and I'm going to start to put a few little bits of my sky color down here. And as I get closer to the bottom, I'm going to go a little bit darker with it, even still. Now, if I had a beach here, I would add the beach color into the watercolor as it got closer to the beach. In this case, I'm not going to put a beach in, but the beach would affect this whole thing. All right, so let's go ahead and grab a little bit of our darker color. Let's just make a kind of a pink, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm always adding a little bit of that sky color into whatever color I'm using my water. And this does not have to be super dark here. This is super calm, so I'm not going to put a lot of like really rough waves or anything like that. But I do want some darker colors in here. And as I get down closer, I'm going to press down a little bit harder, get a little bit more swells in this water. You can see how I'm kind of skipping around in between. That water is going to kind of flow into each other. These waves kind of react to one another. And I want to blend out that bottom area a little bit on these waves. I'm not worried about the top part too much right now, because what I'm going to do is add my highlights to that. Okay, so let's go ahead and add our highlights now. I'm going to get some white, and I don't want to go like full on white, because that would be kind of white caps happens when the sea is really rough. Here we're kind of trying to keep it calm. This is not like particularly, this is not a lake. We're talking ocean here. I'll show you lake reflections down here, but I'm going to get a little bit of that sky color, and I got a little bit of just using the same blue that I was already had in my brush. Okay, so always adding that sky color in, and I'm going to go right above my dark color with these swells and just blend them in just slightly where they're meeting. Right above. You can see how soft that really makes the water look. Just always blending a little bit in, especially with these softer, more calm seas. They'll be a little bit more blendy, and we'll have a lot more of the sky influencing our colors. Okay, so there we go. Really beautiful, calm sea. I hope that kind of makes a little bit of sense there. That's something you can practice. Try different colored water, try different color skies. You don't always even have to use blue at all. You could do your whole thing in pink, just like, you know, some of those other examples that I showed. I kind of, you know, went a little bit blue here. I probably could come back in with a little bit more pink, because this probably would have a little bit more of an influence of pink in it. So I might, just to finish it, come back in with a little bit more pink and put that back in to really make sure that it has a little bit more pinky tones. Get some white, mix that with my pink and put that in my little waves. And remember, up here we're just gonna have very little details, so tiny little brush strokes, very little going on. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. A little bit more pink. Pink forward. But your pink doesn't have to be in this area because these areas are looking down into your water, right? These shadowy areas are going to be more influenced by the actual water, not the sky. So that's why I'm using a little bit of blue there. And these shapes can be kind of that cat's eye. And they could be completely, completely calm too. But I think this is probably a little bit closer to how you would actually see if you were down close into the water. Okay, there we go. So calm seas, calm water. Let's do a little bit of reflection. I'm just going to do a very simple little little landscape with a lake or something like that. So this time let's do our sky of really light blue. I'll just do a little bit of a sky. And then I'm just going to go ahead and bring that blue all the way down into my water and say that my water is also going to be this sky blue. Because especially in a lake, your sky is going to be an almost perfect mirror of, or your water is going to be an almost perfect mirror of your sky, especially if it's very calm. I took a photograph this last weekend, I think. We went out to an area where there was a lot of, where there was like a waterfall. And there was some still water. And it was a perfect mirror, almost exactly what the sky. But you can see that it's a little bit darker, right? Just slightly darker. These areas in the water are just slightly darker. And down here you can actually see the rock underneath. It's a really cool photo, and I think that this is a lot of that what we're going to talk about tonight. So, or right here. So let's go ahead and kind of use that as our guide on this one. So we'll go a little bit darker. I'm going to get a little bit of that phthalo blue.
Hey, real quick. Hold on here. Let me switch the palette on for everybody. Okay. I apologize for that. And then what brush are you using?
This is just a 10 bright here. Okay. Yeah. Right. She's using a flat brush.
Yeah, it would help everybody if I turned on the palette cam. I can see it on my side, and then I just realized I didn't have it on the feed. So.
Oh, you didn't have it the whole time?
No.
That whole time I was doing the calm water?
Correct.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, well, sorry.
I know.
Okay.
I know. Somebody asked about the color mixing. I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Okay.
So start over again.
I see that. All right.
Sorry, everybody. It's been a few weeks. I'm rusty.
Me too. All right, so let's talk about reflections here. So reflections will be a little bit darker, like I said. And depending on the angle that you're looking at it from, they might be the same exact size as your object, or maybe a little bit, if you're looking at it from straight down, you your viewing angle would change if you've got a tree that's this big, but you're looking at it from like a little bit more of a raised thing. Your tree might not be that big in your reflection. You may only see a portion of it in the reflection because of the angle. Like if you're standing on top of a cliff looking down into the water. So I like to just make sure that I have a good reference photo. That's the easiest way to make sure you're getting reflections the right length and size and all of that kind of thing. Coming up with this, on your own can be tricky. Mine, I have one that I took pretty low to the ground. This photo, I crouched down to take so that I got a good long view through here. And this is almost the exact height as that. It's almost a perfect mirror here. So that's what we'll do here. And sometimes you'll see ripples through the image, sometimes not. It depends on if your water is moving at all. Mine was not, so it's almost, again almost like a perfect mirror. I find that it's actually easier to paint this kind of thing if it is moving a little bit. Like this painting would be really tricky because it's hard to paint upside down something that is the exact same shape, and get it to look exactly the same. And in this case, there is stuff all the way across the bank. Okay, so we'll just do some different shapes trees here, and then I will get a little bit of my burnt sienna here, and a little bit more of my, what I would consider my watercolor, would be that phthalo blue. I find that most water has got a little bit of more of a phthalo blue, like a teal-ish tone than the ultramarine blue would be for really deep water maybe. All right, so here is some reflections in my water. Now, if I want to show that it is water, and sometimes it is hard to tell, especially if it is a kind of complete mirror to your object or your trees or whatever. Sometimes it's hard to tell that it is a reflection. We got it pretty close there. So there's a couple of tricks that you can do. I'm going to get a little round brush, and I'm just going to get a little bit of white. And I'll pick up a little bit of my reflection color. It doesn't have to be, or I could pick up a little bit of blue or just leave it white altogether. It doesn't really matter, but just want a light color. Much lighter in value than whatever you've got going on in your painting. And I didn't actually go much darker on this. I could have gone a little bit darker and a little bit less saturated. That's why I added that burnt sienna to it. And I'm just going to take this white now and just kind of tap it across that distant area. And that is going to make it look more reflective. And then I can use that same trick and go through some of the areas that have that reflection in them, making sure that I'm keeping my lines horizontal. I can do little zigzags in them too, but always kind of going back to a horizontal. Okay, we can also take it and maybe get a little bit of white and do some little sparkles on the water. Sometimes things pick up little sparkles, so little teeny tiny dots and things. And you can also do this in your area down here. I went ahead and kind of did a little bit of lighter color down here just to kind of already give it a little bit of faded look here. But you get the idea. It's not too difficult, really. I might go a little bit darker here in some places, and I could add some horizontal lines through my water with a little bit of that, like just like I did my lighter color, my highlights. I could add a few little zigzaggy lines, maybe not that big, but that shows a little bit of movement. So, or maybe there's something disturbing the water underneath, or a little bit of ripple, or there's some seaweed in that area, or maybe a fish just jumped, who knows. But there's a lot of times, even on calm water, that you will see these little areas of ripples where you'll have like a little bit of darker area here and there. So that's okay to do too. And I find that you can kind of take some liberties with your painting, especially if you get it close to being done and it doesn't feel like water completely. Sometimes things like this can help, especially, like I said, if you're doing one that's got very calm waters. Another thing that you can do to help kind of the effect is to take some of these edges and just blur them out a little bit. Maybe like run a little bit of zigzaggy lines, or kind of blur them out. Or you can do this when you paint them into, is like make sure that when you do your little water reflection of the object, that you kind of give it a little wiggle and break it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect. And then that just kind of gives it that extra little bit of like your brain recognizes, oh, that's water, you know. It doesn't take much. Our brains are already kind of pre-wired to recognize shapes and things like this. So, all right, so there's calm water reflection and calm water in the ocean. Let's go ahead and do some more rough waters, or more moving waters. Are there any questions about that before I move on?
There are not.
Okay.
Everybody's just glad that you're back.
Oh, yay. Yay.
And me too, because this would be a much different show right now if it was just me. Not as good.
All right, so moving water. And all water is moving, but you get the idea. You know what I'm talking about. Like, moving as in that, you know. All right, so this is kind of one of my favorite kind of waters to do, because you get to kind of play with shapes and things. So I'm just going to do it as if we're just looking down into an area of water. And I'm going to do it kind of like something like this, right? The light is obviously coming from behind or above somewhere, because you're seeing the light through this wave. You've got these darker areas here, and that light is reflecting down on these waves as they're moving up into this wave. And then back here you have these little calm water areas, right? Little waves there, right? So this is what we're going to be working on here. And let me see if I can find a good photo for this, because it's always helpful to have a photo in mind. All right, so there's some moving water there. We can have a lot of foam with moving water. We can have some spray with moving water a lot of times. All these white caps and things like that are going to show up more if you have moving water. Calm water, not so much. Sometimes you'll see a little bit of it way off, you know, or somewhere as it breaks on the shoreline especially. But for the most part, this is what you're going to see with only with your moving water, mostly. All right, so I'm going to get some green gold and add that to my turquoise. That's a cobalt teal color. A lot of times as that water gets thinner, the color changes because you're seeing more sunlight through it, so it turns more green-ish in places where it's, coming up. And let me go ahead and just all right, so that line right there, you see how that kind of comes down, but it doesn't resolve down into anything. So I need to make sure that I'm bringing it, level, right? Got to make sure that all of these lines, and I've seen, examples sent to me of people like struggling with their coastlines or different things like that. And what they're doing is like this, and they're doing these lines that are doing stuff like this when they're trying their waves, but they're not resolving them out. And a lot of times they're not thinking about scale. So they're doing these really massive waves in the distance, and that throws off the whole perspective. So you kind of have to keep those two things in mind, is like, where is this wave in relation to me, the viewer? Is this way in the distance? If so, remember, we're not going to see any of the detail. All we're going to see is pretty much, even if it's a real choppy sea, we may see a little bit more movement. Those shapes might be a little bit bigger, but they're not going to be these big solid chunks of color that you'd see in the foreground. Okay, so make sure that as you're getting farther away from you, that you're making these waves smaller and keeping those little highlights and things that you're seeing on the waves, make them smaller. Closer together, less detail the farther away that they are. If you're looking down at something, also not going to see a ton of detail. So what I'm talking about is things like this wave compared to this wave here, or this wave here, right? This whole area is real close to us. I wish I had one that showed the actual wave, but because we're not seeing the surge of water come up in this photo. But like this wave here is a perfect example. See how far away it is? We're not seeing anything but just kind of basically a solid line almost. It's got a little bit of a curl, but we're not seeing a lot of sea spray. We're not seeing any of that. We're just seeing this kind of almost horizontal line here coming through. And same thing with this one. And then there's a little tiny one way back there that we're seeing too. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So I really should be getting a little bit more blue though back behind here, right? Because the farther away that I go, the less light's going to be hitting that water. If it's a deep water, it's going to be darker.
Got a quick question. Somebody wants to know, could they be using a fan brush for this?
Yeah, let's go ahead and use a fan brush for this, for sure. I'm going to block it in with this bigger brush because it's just easier, but then, yeah, we'll be moving to a fan brush here.
Okay.
And a fan brush or a stippler or a blender, any of those brushes.
And then I have another question. Someone would like to know, would this this technique, be good for snowbanks also? Like if you're painting a snowy scene with snowbanks?
Potentially. It depends on, I think snowbanks have more to do with the wind and things like that than water, even though it is water, a form of water. But yeah, it would have that same kind of rolling feel for sure, I think. You're not going to see those peaks and valleys and things like that. All right, I don't know what I'm doing here. Let's give it something to crash against. So let's just make a rock color here. I'm going to kind of mix I don't have it black, so just going to make some rocks coming out into the water here. All right. And really, it's not going to come that far up. I don't know why I did it that far up. Let's go ahead and give it a horizon line up over here because that's silly. We'll do it right here. This will be our sky. We don't need that much ocean. Okay. We're just making some points back here, so it doesn't matter if we keep it. Okay, so I'm going to put some blue against my horizon there. And then I'll go a little bit darker on the, ooh, that's really dark. There we go. Now, if you are in the water, you're going to see these waves above your head, you know, and you're going to see the rolling of the ocean. Let me show you that real quick, because that is a different perspective, right? If you're in the water or below the sea level, whatever, you're going to see the ocean is going to look like this. And sometimes you're going to get a photo where you're low enough that sea will be choppy. Most of the time, it's going to be level, and you want to make darn sure that that water is completely level at the horizon line. If it's angled, it's going to make it look like you're falling off the end of the world.
Right, it has to be straight because we know the world is flat.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, geez. Thank you for pointing that out.
Well, I think it's an important art thing that people
It
need
is.
to know.
It is.
Realize.
Yeah, it is.
That's why the horizon's flat.
Oh, gosh. All right, I'm just going to use my T-square to make sure that I got it straight. And use that dark color now. Get some of that dark that I used up here. And use it in my water here. And I'm going to do some, see, now that was too much, right? Way too much. Because where is that going? It's not leveling out, that's for darn sure, right? So if I do that, I need to make it go somewhere, right? It can be there, maybe, but it's not gonna be that shape. It's maybe gonna be like this. Right now it looks okay. Now it's like, okay, I could see that, right? And that is because we're tapering it off, we're leveling it out. So even if it's like really violently pitched like that, we need to make sure that it is leveling out. All right. Let's go ahead and do some fun stuff. Let's go ahead and switch brushes here. And I think I'm going to put out some of my lighter blue. These are just little things. I would say you don't even have to practice this way. I'm kind of just showing you some techniques here. But you could do these in an actual tutorial. And a lot of these are in tutorials. So what I maybe challenge you to do is like try to find these in the tutorials. Look at the photos of the tutorials and see, try to start recognizing, or even get photographs of the ocean and try to start recognizing some of these shapes and things that I'm talking about in the photos that you already have. It'll be amazing how much you'll start to see once you start to notice these things about the ocean, right? So let's go ahead and just put some of those like little rolling waves way back here. And I'm just going to take the fan brush and tap in and keep it mostly horizontal and just pick one of these dark lines that I already did and just kind of put in some surf, right? And let's do another little one like way back here, but keep it really, really, really small because we want this to look like it's really far away. And to keep that looking small, I have to make these minuscule, okay? Here's a little wave here, so let's go ahead and put some little white caps on it. And a lot of times these white caps are not going to be white. They'll be like a little bit of blue or a little bit of green in them, that kind of thing. So you don't have to like go straight in with white. You can kind of use blue or a lighter blue or whatever color's in your sky. Oftentimes that's a great color to use for these. So just tapping in little highlights. And oftentimes also you're going to make sure that you have a dark shadow underneath whatever you've just done. So anytime you put in a lighter color, you want to make sure that you're going over a darker area. And if you aren't, then go ahead and put some darker color underneath, because if you have light, you're going to have a shadow usually. And that will help with that perspective and that kind of thing. Okay. Or not perspective, but that depth. All right, so let's go ahead and give this guy maybe some movement this way. And I'll say my wave is coming up here. A lot of times what happens is you're going to get these little things broken up. So I'm just going to take that fan brush and use it flat and scribble it side to side and give it some little wiggles, but always kind of keeping it flat and horizontal on the end. Okay, then I can let's get a mid-tone color, and again get some of that kind of greenish color coming up. So you can have forward momentum and those straight lines if it's the end of it, right? So we can crash it together. We can have this point or these straight lines, as long as at the end of that is where the water is flinging itself out into oblivion, right? So there are areas like right on the shoreline where you do see these kind of more abrupt shapes and things. And then you can have these really fun little, and I think I'm going to switch to a stippler so I can get a little bigger splashes out of it. But see how we kind of led up to it with these kind of streaky lines. And that just goes along with the momentum of the water, whatever direction it's moving in. Okay. So fun painting this way because it's very I find it very almost therapeutic. Get your aggressions out, really move that brush around, and as long as you're kind of keeping with that feel of the waves, you can kind of deviate a little bit from the actual photos a little bit. Or let's go ahead and crash that out right there. Bring that peak up. Give it a little, maybe it hit a rock under the water that we can't see or something like that, and do a little bit along our rocks right there. Now, this rock, that probably didn't need to be there because we need to have that rock in front of that. So I'm going to go ahead and get an angle brush and go ahead and put that rock back in right there. Let's see, let's just bring that down. See, sometimes the waves are going behind and we're not seeing. And let's go ahead and give our rocks a little bit of a highlight too, and that will help us kind of tell where they're at. I'm just going to put a little bit of burnt or unbleached titanium with this burnt umber, burnt sienna mixture. And my dog is like, what, are we done? Really?
I don't know that Fitz missed this though.
Yeah, I don't think he did. He was very glad we weren't doing these shows. He got unlimited cuddles and lots of extra cuddles because Mom was on the couch a lot with him. All right, so I'm going to stop there, but you get the idea. It's just movement, crashing waves at the top, that little bits of sea spray and things like that. And I think that having a couple colors in your sea spray is really helpful. Usually, you know, like a light blue and then the brighter white at the end. So, you know, starting out with a little bit more sorry, I'm getting distracted here. Start out your highlight with a little bit more of a mid-tone color, mid-light tone color, and then bring it to the brightest tone right at the very top. And that's where you can also take it and splatter it a little bit too, right at the end. Take your white and just add your little splashy splash. And don't add it back here. You're not going to see it back in the back. Just in the front here where it's close to you. Okay? So.
First night back, got the splatters.
Heck yeah, we missed the splatters. What are you talking about? All right, I like that one. That was fun for a little quick painting. All right, so I think the only other thing, what did we say? Calm waters and falling waters. Yeah, okay. I think that's good because we did reflections. We did moving water. Well, we didn't do river, but river, let's do quick river here. River are pretty simple to me. They're really fun to do. A lot of times I like to do a zigzag. So start your water lighter as it goes down, and then as it comes closer to you, widen it out and then whatever is around it can be reflected in it. A lot of times with rivers, you're gonna see reflections of the banks or reflections of trees, things like that. This is like a distant river here. Let's do some green, like green banks coming in. In the distance, you're often, and we're going to talk about this in a couple of weeks, but you're going to often see more cool tones. So we can use kind of a cooler green back there, and then save these kind of brighter yellowy greens for the foreground. That'll automatically make this area look closer to us. And a lot of times what I will do too with the river is put a lot of the sky in it, just like our other ones. But the sky will be, especially if it's moving pretty good, the sky will be chopped up. So you may have an area where there's like clouds, and a lot of times with rivers too, you're just going to have like a lot of trees behind it. Like sometimes you'll have like an open prairie like this, you know, kind of thing, maybe Scotland or somewhere like that. You'd see something like this, but a lot of times you'll have like mountains back here or trees, forest or something like that is in the distance. I'm just going to kind of leave it and let that water kind of meander out into nothing back here and kind of disappear into the color of my sky. All right, super easy way of just kind of disappearing it. But if I have a cloud, say, you know, over here, say I have a cloud over here, I might see a little bit of it in my water, but it's going to be broken up. So I'll only see a little bit of it. And oftentimes I'll just kind of split the distance between the horizon and actually that cloud would probably, if it's right up there, it's probably going to be in the water down here, not right there. But and oftentimes you'll see things in the water down here, especially if you're not seeing the rest of that sky. You might see things that are completely off the canvas that we don't even see that are up in the sky above our heads. And that's okay too, you know. Right, so then right at the line of the bank, so we've got kind of our base in here. That's where we're going to want to go nice and dark and keep it small. I've gone to a filbert here. And usually there's going to be a nice dark line right there where that bank is. And a lot of times you'll see some of the, and back in here I don't have to go super dark because that area we're trying to kind of disappear anyways. So you might go a little bit darker but not as dark. These areas here, the foliage is going to be in front. So we're not going to see that dark line, right? Any of these areas right here where the foliage is in front, the only time we're seeing that dark line is when we can see the bank of it. So here, 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 right? All the rest of this is all foliage, trees, whatever. A lot of times you'll have trees or things like breaking these shapes up in front. All right, let me get some white, some yellow. Put some highlights in here. This looks like it's kind of distant to me. You know, it's not like a, this looks like if you're looking at it from, you know, the sky almost, you know, or a hill or whatever. Quite distant. Then you can use the same tricks that we did when we did the calm water. We can use some little horizontal marks. And even with moving water, we're going to have those same kind of like calming shapes, but with more rapid water, we might have rocks and things under here making ripples, and the water is a little bit more unpredictable shape. So you might see some interesting shapes, more variation in your shapes and things, and more kind of zigzaggy lines, more kind of white caps and things like that. So you will see sometimes like little white caps and things in your moving water on a river, depending on how rapid it is. You know, this one looks a little bit more kind of calm, but all right, I think I'm going to stop there. I do need to make sure though that I'm making my ripples get smaller as they go in the distance. So just making sure that I'm not getting too crazy. And then the last thing you could do is kind of come up and do that little trick where you kind of add your little white line to the just over that dark area so that you get that sense of the bank. And there's just a little bit of that reflected light in the area just below the bank, right? Just in those little areas. And even if this line in my photo was like this, I would not necessarily paint it in. See, even here where it's kind of like a straight line, you can see that I've like flattened it out right here before I curved it. It's at an angle, but it's somewhat flat. The flatter that you can get away with, the more it'll look like water. So if you have a reference photo that is all angles, on these. Sometimes it's helpful to kind of flatten it out. Whoa, I did not mean to do that. Flatten it out a little bit on these straightaways, kind of thing, so that it mimics water a little bit more. That's just something that a painter's prerogative, right? We can manipulate the image to make it easier for the viewer to recognize it as water, and that's one of the tricks that you can use to help that along, especially if your reference photo is a little bit trickier to paint.
Got a quick question.
Yes.
I would like to know what notebook are you painting in?
This is my Strathmore visual journal. These are my mixed media. I love these. They're great to paint on. They can hold a lot of paint, and they warp, but they don't warp terribly, and they're great for practice. I really like them a lot. I've used them for several years. I have whole notebooks full of painted examples. You can see this one that we painted on, earlier isn't super warped or anything. So we used them for all of this is that beginner series that we did last year. Yeah, so I used it for all of that. Okay, and then I guess the last one was Waterfall. Oh, we're only an hour in. My goodness, we're like killing it on time. That's great.
Fitzy thinks it's 3 hours.
Yeah, he's like groaning over there like, oh my gosh, when are we going to end this torture? All right, so I'm going to switch to a waterfall image that I have. So one of the things with waterfalls, and I have a painting that is a perfect example of this. If I can find it real quick. It's the first one that I started with here. That depending on the way you're looking at it, right? This one is falling straight towards us. So we're seeing a more straightforward, straight up and down view of the waterfall. We're not really worried about angles. These two are being viewed from the side, or the water at least is going out from the side, right? So what happens with water is that it's obviously falling. It's going to go vertical eventually, depending on how wide this distance is and how forceful it is coming out. You may have a longer time before that arc turns completely, straight up and down. But eventually it is going to go straight up and down. If you have a huge waterfall, if my waterfall was coming from way up here and falling all the way down to here, I would make sure that, by the time it gets to about right here, it's going to be going straight, and your image should reflect that. Hopefully you'll have a good image that you're working from. So like this one here, we're almost vertical by the time we get here. We're still like at a slight angle here, and that's because it's a pretty short waterfall, and it's coming pretty, at a pretty good clip, right? All right. So that's rule number one, is just kind of pay attention to the angle and the forcefulness of the water that is falling. Let me make sure this is all dry before I close it up. All right, I think it's okay. Otherwise it's going to stick to itself and then we're going to have a mess. Actually, I think I'll just leave it like that. Leave it open for a little bit longer. Okay, so one of the things about water is that it is going to, especially if it's like, moving water. If you've always, you've poured something from a pitcher into a cup before, and you see that it stays in a line. The water wants to stay together. It's kind of bonded together in the cup, and even as you're pouring it, it's wanting to stay together. So same deal for a waterfall. It's all hanging out together. It does not want to break apart into small particles. So as it breaks, as that force of the waterfall is making it fall apart, it's kind of forming these long, almost string-like textures and things. I find it really fascinating painting waterfalls because sometimes you get the most interesting shapes and things happening. So, for instance, with this one, you can see that you've got this long string of water that just did not want to fall apart. But then as it does, it's just kind of creating these like long ribbons of shapes and things here, like a block of shapes coming down and as the light's hitting it. And then you have these really fun little areas where it's just really like giving up the ghost and it's all kind of coming apart and blasting into bits, right? I know. Well, I mean, it's trying its hardest to stay together, but sometimes it can't. So you just get all these really fun little sinuous things. But then even in this, it's not solid white. You see how many different values you've got going on here. You've got these dark areas, and you've got some mid-tones and some lighter tones, and then you have just a few pops, very few little pops of super bright areas. So you don't want to go in straight into a waterfall and put like your highlight in because you've got no place to go with it. The light's hitting it right here, so it's super bright right at the top in this photo. But so let's go ahead and start out with our dark area, our rocks, and just leave room for our waterfall to go. And I'm going to go ahead and go pretty dark behind even, but I'm going to use a lot of blue with my area behind, just behind my waterfall. But I do want it dark. All right, and then usually the pool that it's going into, depending on how much light is hitting it, it's going to be your kind of bluish color. And we went to a waterfall when we did our little trip a couple weekends ago that the water was green. It was green. It was crazy. I don't know if I got a picture of it. Let me see. There, I got a little. You got one? Yeah. That's. It was even greener from the top, though. It was like almost a turquoisey blue color. It's really pretty. Mark climbed down. I thought he was going to kill himself. Okay, so note to self, we are not intrepid explorers. We did remember to bring a picnic, so we had food and sustenance for ourselves. We did remember to bring our sneakers and my walking stick. But when Mark went down to take that picture of the waterfall, he climbed down these steps, the little boards that I don't know. We don't know how long they've been there. So
they're bolted into the tree.
They're bolted into the tree, but how long have those boards been there? We don't know. What's behind? What's underneath here?
Just
rocks. Solid rock, right?
It's fine.
Mark is 57. He's a lot better shape than I am, I have to say. He's a lot more, he gets out there and does the garden and stuff. Okay, but he had the car keys. So, we're out here in the middle of nowhere with no cell service, and he goes and climbs down. I've got the dog and my cell phone and no car keys. So if he had fallen on those rocks, I would have had no way of helping him. Like
you have to hike out.
I was definitely not going to climb down those rocks with the dog to try to help you, because like there's no way I could climb back up with you, like, or get you out of there. So, oh my gosh, yeah, we didn't really think that through very well. All right, so okay, on to another subject. Just saying, don't go rock climbing without, at least giving your wife the car keys and your cell phone.
Well, my phone does have the satellite capability in it, so if
you weren't knocked unconscious, you could have called out.
When I eventually came around, I could have probably called if I didn't break my arms.
Thankfully, everything was fine. All right. Okay, so let's add some green here. I'm just having fun here. We're just painting fun little we'll put some mosses in our waterfall area around it. I'm not gonna put a sky or anything in, I don't think. Or maybe we can just put some green back here where some darker green. We'll mix up our green gold and our phthalo green. Okay, so we've got a little bit of background here, okay? And I'm going to keep this pretty dark through here. Might take a little bit of this highlight color and just throw some highlights on these rocks that are near the water, just a few of them. And maybe some of these that are down here. I feel like I want a little bit of something back here. Okay. Almost like a little grotto or something. All right, so then we decide where we want our waterfall to start. So I'm just going to kind of put in the bank of it and kind of mark that out on both sides. So there and there. And usually it's pretty narrow, but it will be higher than your waterfall. So keep that in mind. Your banks in the same thing with the beach or, ocean or whatever. Your wherever the water ends, because water is going to flow into areas that are lower than it. So your banks or your rocks or whatever, beach, whatever it is, are going to have to be higher than your water for it to make sense. So here we're going to want to make our little, banks of our river a little bit higher. I'm going to get a little bit of that green, and I'm just going to go back behind now and just fill in that area, just to make sure that that darker back there, that we have an area where our rocks are coming out, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and use a fan brush. Fan brush is one of my favorites to use for this because it makes it so easy. And again, I don't want to start out with my white, right? Because I don't have any place to go if I do that. So I'm going to start out with kind of just a mid-tone that's lighter than this background blue that I have. And I'm just going to kind of block out the shapes that I'm seeing in the water and tapping. And the nice thing about this is it's already kind of that ribbon shape, right? So we're going to get those like long, thin lines that we want just by tapping with this. And this is going to kind of, now we don't have to go this green. We could add a little bit of brown to it to make it a little bit more neutral. That color in the middle of that waterfall was almost gray. And this is a little bit farther down than my, and then the splash area, we want to stay pretty like oval. We don't want to go too round because then it's making the perspective look like we're looking straight down at it. So we're looking at an angle. So we think about this and we kind of bring it to where, we're at. We're going to probably come out to about right here. And that's what I'm seeing in my picture too. So and we're not seeing the back side of the oval because it's kind of far, it's underneath the waterfall. But we're gonna see a little area of splashy splash right at the bottom that's gonna stretch out on either side. All right, then maybe we'll grab a little bit of the green gold. Need some more white here. I hope this is helping. I don't know. I feel like it's pretty random, but hopefully it will spark some ideas for you guys, or if you have a photo that you've been thinking about doing that you might pull it out and try it after seeing this, and maybe Just gives you a few little insights into what you're seeing. You can take out some photos and start looking and seeing if you can recognize any of the things we've talked about in this video. Let me know in the comments if you've observed anything about water that I missed or that you would like to see me show next time. We're going to be working on a full tutorial next week of that kind of splashy, stormy sea, so it'll be fun. It's got a lot of rocks and things. Okay, now down here, all this water is just finally kind of bit the dust, and it's all kind of breaking apart. So down here, we're going to have less of the stringy stuff and more of the dots and things. Those dots are a little bit big. We can probably come in with our splattering right here, down here. But it's all it'll splash up a little bit, and sometimes you'll see some kind of like vertical splashing out. But if you get much farther out from that little area right in here, you're not going to see much more of that. It's going to all kind of start to flatten out. So keep your special splashy area just right kind of close to the waterfall there. And now I'm going to start with my white. Now I still have these other colors in my brush, so it's going to affect the white a little bit. But I can also kind of drag it through. You can see now that layering is really doing fun things for our waterfall. And I think I'm going to switch now to a round brush so I can get even more specific and just do very tiny little focused areas of highlight. And I'm going to just kind of wiggle my brush through and create those little serpentine shapes and things that I'm seeing that you really can't get with the fan brush because it's going to stick together too much. So this round brush can kind of get all these little fun shapes and things that I'm seeing in the water. I'm just going to dab, 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 little dots, dot, dot, dot. Didn't do a lot of the splashy bits yet. And then as it moves down away from there, it's going to start catching that. It's going to start going flat, but it's going to start catching the movement of the water, and it's going to start doing these little zigzaggy lines and things that moving water does. Right? Okay. And just put a few little bigger, brighter areas into there that we want to direct the water. There. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of dry brush and drag my brush through, which is another thing that you can do. And by dry brush, I mean I'm going to take it. I'll do a little dry brushing on here and give you an idea, because I kind of lost my area there where I've got so much water. I don't want to do it too much more on there, but I'll dry brush on here. So dry brush is just taking it, and you can see I've got some areas of dry brush in through here. Basically, you're just trying to kind of cause texture to happen. So I'm going to pull down through and create texture in my rock there. Let's get some green here and put some textured areas of.
Got a question.
Mm-hmm.
They'd like to know, should they allow any of the layers to dry before applying?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah, it depends on how blendy you want it to be, and you do want some blending to happen with this. So like with those first few layers, I'd probably not wait and just kind of let them kind of flow a little bit into each other. But then for the white layer, for sure, I would probably put that on when it's dry underneath. Yeah, that's a really good question. Because the drier that it is, the less that white's going to blend with it. So I could probably wait for this white to dry and do another layer, and it would be even brighter, brighter still. And I probably could have come out at more of an angle here. You can see that mine here is a lot more angled than I did here. But this waterfall is a little bit longer too, so I didn't do that. But I probably could come out here with a little bit more of a line, you know. Yeah, there we go. A little bit more of a straight line, especially since this kind of comes out from this direction. All right, so I gave it like a little bit of a nudge in this direction. A lot of times you'll see like a little bit of a cup right here too, though. So like this, because it's kind of coming down from a bowl, you know, there's a body of water behind it. So a lot of times there'll be just a slight little cupping that happens there, but I'm going a little bit higher on this side since this is the direction that that water is kind of coming down from. But what I could do is take that white and or one of the other colors and skim it along here to give it some dry brushing and tap it to get some splashing happening.
So the under background layers should be more wet on wet and then do the dry.
Yeah, I would say that would be a good kind of rule of thumb.
Okay.
All right, and then the last thing you can do is take your Deerfoot Stippler, and once this is all done, a lot of times you'll see like mist coming up from your waterfalls, especially if the area is kind of enclosed and it's a heavy drop. So get a little bit of white and some glaze or some water, just water it down, and then come up and add a little bit of spray and mist coming up from, not spray necessarily, but mist coming up from the water around the bottom, kind of obscuring it and clouding it out a little bit there. Okay, and then let's take our brush here and
Got a color question.
mm-hmm.
Do you know if you can mix green gold if they don't have that color?
Yes, yeah, we'll show you here. I'll
Okay.
show you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a mixed color, so it's pre-mixed. It's not a color that's like a solid pigment, like a magenta or something like Quinacridone Magenta or Ultramarine Blue or Phthalo Blue or one of those. Those can't be mixed because they're a solid pigment. Okay, so one of the things for me that's difficult is to stop with the waterfall because I keep wanting to do more and more detail, but oftentimes like you can kind of overwork them. So I'm gonna bring this out just a little bit more right here, and then I'm gonna call it quits because I feel like I can feel myself going a little too far with it.
Well, you haven't added the flowers yet,
That's true.
and butterflies and ladybugs
Mm-hmm.
and
True.
tanks.
All right, so there we go. We got the idea. That's fun. And another thing that you can do is once you're done with it and it's completely dry, you can go in with some glazing. And that's often helpful, especially if you've gotten some areas that have gotten too much white, but you say you have this white and it's gone on and you really like the look of it, but you feel like it needs to be darker or a different color or something like that. So let it dry completely, and then the glaze is where you can come in and just tweak it or add little areas of dark, or maybe add a little bit more blue in this area over here or something like that. Like down in here, I feel like it could be a little bit darker. So I'm going to get some of that Phthalo Blue and Burnt Sienna and my glaze, and just come up in here and add little bits of, and start light if you don't want it to overwhelm your painting, but you can add back in color so that you push back some of that whiteness if you overdo. And oftentimes I'll do that anyways, just to give it some depth, especially like around the edges here and things like that. Maybe up in there where it's kind of first coming out, or in the middle, you might need, you know, another little area. Or if you covered up all of your dark areas, you know, go in there and kind of just glaze back certain bits of it so that you get a little bit more depth in the waterfall. Okay. And then you can always go back in and add more white. You know, if you do that and you're like, okay, well, I still need some splashy right here, then, you know, go back in by all means. You can go back and forth as many times as you need to until you get it looking the way you want it to. All right, I'm gonna put a little bit more white surf around the outside too. I noticed there was like a little bit more of a surge of water around the outside where those ripples were turning white, like right along that outer edge there. So I might go in with just a little bit of white and just add that in, kind of keeping it sort of horizontal. Okay, keeping that oval shape that we talked about. All right, so let me show you how to mix green gold. I might not have the right yellow for it here, but we'll try to get it as close as we can. I probably need a more golden yellow. And I don't have my phthalo green, but phthalo blue will suffice. So I'll start with phthalo blue and I'll mix it with yellow. And for green gold, it's mostly yellow. So I'm going to go mostly yellow, and then I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna. So, oops, I had the darker color in the middle part of my brush there. Okay, so there's the kind of knockoff version, right? And then we'll see how close we got it. So maybe a little bit more yellow, but that's all green gold is. It's just kind of a yellow with a phthalo blue or phthalo green added to it. And there's other colors in there, but the burnt sienna kind of helps tone it down because I find that the phthalo blue and if I'm using a yellow like cadmium yellow that is really, really bright, the green is too vivid that it makes. So you need a yellow that's a little bit more neutral, and so adding just a tiny bit of or not neutral, but a little bit more gold. So I think the original green gold is nickel azo yellow. I use India yellow as a substitute for that. So you could use India yellow with your phthalo green and see what you get. And then, add a little burnt sienna if you want to neutralize it a little bit. All right, guys, I think that's it. So we did a few little fun. Let me put falling water on this. And I'll have these on my website so you can kind of download them and right there, that one, moving water and calm water. So you can download them, study them, do your own little versions of them. I'd love to see them if you want to share them with me. I've got all kinds of Links down in the description for doing that. Facebook's usually the easiest way. I've got a group called Thankful Art where you can share your artwork that you've done in my tutorials. And I did want to show one other thing. I'll just mention it. I don't want to demonstrate it tonight necessarily, but here's one of the reflected water tutorials that we've got. Let me just go over some of these paintings that I have to show you some of the options for tutorials in case you're looking for a tutorial to try. So this one was on there. We've talked about that one already, kind of the sea spray one. And this is an old one. I don't remember how old that one is, but there's links down in the description for I've got a couple of links for 2 different ocean playlists that have nautical themed things. Some of them have sea creatures in them too. This one is a bonus video, so that one you'll find on my website. This one we did a few weeks ago, and you can see that the water, as we got closer, back in here we're reflecting a lot of sky, right, as in the distance. Not a lot of reflections on this, just because of the angle that the photo was taken, I guess, and because the sky is so reflective. I think the lower to the ground that you get, the more that mirrored effect happens, and the more the sky you see. And it's all about the angles, but I went with the photo. So, sometimes you would think, oh, maybe there should have been like some mountain reflections in this water. In this particular photo, because of the angle that they took it from, there was no reflections in the water. A slight little bit here and a little bit on these rocks, but that was it. I think a lot of that had to do with the shallowness of the viewing angle. It was making this river look like a mirror. But then as you get down here, there's a lot of rocks that you could see through, because they were right underneath. As the water gets closer to you, and if it's thinner, you're going to be able to see through it like glass. All right, so those 2. Then that one was one of our beginner series from a couple of years ago that we did, called, I think, Misty River Reflections, and it talked about values and using these dark tone lights and things, and did some really simple water effects, but really easy. That one's another bonus video. So that was a snowy scene with a river. There's another one where you're looking down into the water and getting these like fun little ripples and things happening with the koi fish. We showed that one already with the turtle and the underwater. And these are the 2 that I wanted to mention, was palette knife. So if you're interested in working with palette knife with your ocean scenes, it's really fun to do. And I have multiple ones that I've done, other ones that have rocks and things with them. But palette knife doing ocean things, especially surf like this, is really fun, and it's super easy to do. You can get those really fun little broken waves by using the palette knife. This one's another bonus video. I just pulled out all the ones that I could find that were kind of ocean-y, so that one's a more recent one that we did a few weeks ago, a few months ago. Another one from last year, I think, or earlier this year, I can't remember. This one's another more recent one. Really fun. And then, another kind of more recent one, very little to see. All right, so there's just like a little slice of, hopefully there's something for everybody in there. And if you guys like this particular kind of, compilation video where I'm kind of like doing a little, smaller examples and trying to kind of tackle a subject, let me know. And if you have ideas for other subjects you want to see, let me know in the comments. Next time we meet, we're going to be putting all of this to practice and doing a seascape. And then the week after that, we're going to do understanding how to create depth in your paintings in landscapes. So kind of some of the tricks that I found that are surefire ways of helping you kind of develop some depth in your paintings. And we'll have plenty of examples like this, just like we did this week. All right. Thank you guys so much. Ooh, super chat. What?
You're just running off on me. You give me zero chance to break in there.
Sorry.
Okay, super chats. We got a super chat from our friend Pat.
Oh, thank you, Pat. Thank you, Angela and Mark. Glad you're back with us, painting and chatting. Oh, thank you. We're really glad to be back too.
That's so awesome.
Missed you guys.
Thank you, Pat.
Yes.
And then we have a couple of questions.
Okay. I have a bunch of open golden acrylics. Can I speed up the drying time with a medium of some kind? I don't think so, because I think the whole idea with golden, the open acrylics, is to make them have more like a longer drying time. But what you can do is mix regular acrylics in with them, and that will help cut the drying time down. So it may make them less blendable. You know, it'll shorten that dry time for you. But I know that you can do that with the golden acrylics. They intermix. So if you use regular acrylic with the golden acrylic open, and, you know, maybe 50-50, it should lessen the dry time a little bit, I think, in theory. You could try that and see how it goes. Let me know in comments if you try it and if it works. I know that there are artists that use the golden, what is it? Do I have it? The open medium in there. I guess I don't have one here. I thought I had it. I guess I must have put it away. But they have a medium, an open. It's called medium. These are what she's talking about, by the way, if you haven't seen them. Golden has a brand of acrylics that is more like oil paint. But they're acrylics, so they don't have the solvents and things that you have with oil painting, but they take longer to dry. So up to 24 hours sometimes, you know, depending on what it is. So anyhow, I've seen where artists will use a little drop of the medium. They have an open medium that you can add to your paints, acrylic paints, to make them more like open paints. But I've seen where the artist was using it with their glazing fluid. So they used the glazing fluid and add the open medium to the glazing fluid to make a fluid, and then they just kind of dip into it as they paint, and use that when they're blending and things, and it helps give it a little bit more blend time. And it's not as doesn't take as long as these, but I think I'm 99% sure you can intermix these with acrylic, regular acrylic paints, and hopefully alter that dry time. But after you've painted them, I don't think that you can do much about it. I mean, you could probably try a hairdryer, but I'm not really sure how that would affect them, being that they have kind of a different kind of base. So I'm not sure I would do that. Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I paint with acrylics, not oils. I don't have patience to wait for the drying. Okay. If I want to make a very orange transparent halo around the sun or on a sunset over a lake, what is the best orange to use? Does Quin Burnt Orange work? Ooh, that would be really pretty. Yeah, Quin Burnt Orange is a really pretty color. I don't know that I would use it for the area right around the sun, just because it's more of a reddish orange. I would probably use an orange that is more vibrant. So here's what I'm talking about. If I can find it. I keep pulling the wrong thing. Okay, so here's my color chart here. Here's burnt orange right here. And then here's our yellows. So I would probably start out with, I usually start out with I was going to do it, but I don't think I'll just talk about it. So and I have tutorials on it too, on sunsets. So maybe pick one that has kind of the similar colors and see if that helps. But I would start with a white for the center of your sun usually, and then go to a cadmium yellow light, like that one there, around the outside of that, and then go to a like a maybe a cadmium deep or cadmium yellow medium, or one of the more goldy colors like India yellow is what I use a lot. For your first area around the sun, just to kind of go a little bit more gold. And depending on how big the area is, because a lot of times you don't have a lot of room to work, so you can't use like 12 colors. But that's probably the next one that I would use. And then I would pick another color that is closer to it. So maybe a cadmium orange or a pyrrole orange is probably what I would choose, just because it is the closest to yellow. And then getting away from that, then go to a like a cadmium red light or a where is the cadmium red light? Right here. Cadmium red light or quinacridone burnt orange, for the most fiery part of that orangey section. But you could always add yellow to your quinacridone and make it a little bit more orangey. But it's always going to have a little bit more of a pink tone to it. So it's not going to be like a bright orange that you might want in your question. And you can always play around with it too, on a practice thing. That's why I really like having these notebooks, because I will, if I have an idea like that, I'll work it out on paper on my notebook ahead of time and kind of just try different color combinations and see which ones get you closer to what you're looking for before you do it on your canvas. And that way you'll just save time with your experimenting,
And then we have another super chat.
Yay. Y'all are sweet tonight. Thank you.
From our friend Patty.
Patty, thank you. I'm glad you're feeling better. Me too. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you very much.
The Pats
Yes.
and Patties.
Feeling
came
good.
out.
Yes, I know. Yeah, the Pats and Patties are. I went to a game night. Okay, this is what happened to me. I answered a question, or like somebody commented on this Facebook thing here in town that was like, hey, does anybody like to play games? And I was like, yeah, I do. And then I suddenly got put into a Facebook group with a bunch of other people from town that were planning on getting together to play games. And so now I'm like locked in to game nights.
And she loves me so much.
Because I can't say no, apparently.
And she loves me so much, she didn't make me go with her.
Did not make him go.
So I said thank you by making her banana bread while she was gone.
Yes, and I did send him the address of the people in case it was a trap or something.
Right.
But
I told her to keep an eye on her drink at all times.
exactly. It was fine. They were lovely people. We had a good time. I don't know how it made me think of. The thing that made me think of it was that every person in the group has an A name, so it's like everyone has an A name. So we have except for one, but we're gonna add an A to the top. So she's A Kim now.
It will give a shout out here at the end to the nurse at the hospital that knows Angela or follows her.
Yes, yeah.
That's funny.
Oh, Nicole, I think. Can't remember. Yeah, I think that was her name. But yeah, there was a nurse at the hospital that knew my name. She paints along with us, so it was pretty cool.
Awesome.
Small world. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much. Hope you learned something. Didn't leave myself much room for that river one, but we got the idea, I think. And like I said, I'll take a picture of this and we'll have it up on the website for you to download. You can look at them. I'm not going to do a traceable for this because they're not really traceable. It's not really a traceable type of thing. But lots of different tutorials. Make sure you check out my website, thankfulart.com. And do a search for water in there, or probably ocean, something like that, seascape, one of those kind of main tag words. if you go to the tutorials section on my website, because it'll kind of dump you onto my homepage, it doesn't have a search button there, but you'll have to go to the tutorials section, and that'll have a search bar. It's a really good search engine. It'll pull up all of my tutorials that have water in them. Probably way more than you want to search through, but there's lots of them, and hopefully you find one that you like and paint along with me. All right, thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your evening. We'll be back next week with the full tutorial. I'll see you next time. Bye.